in, there's a lot of political reasons to be focused on the alliance and to maybe exaggerate, the troubles and challenges that we appear to have, the differences, are very exaggerated for political purposes. But it is a time of a lot of anxiety about the alliance. You can feel it wherever you go. You know, whether it's a story about U.S. considering troop withdrawal, whether it's arguments about the role of United Nations Command, you know, whether it's about U.S. ROK working group and how well it's coordinating, OPCON transfer, differences of opinion. You hear a lot of anxiety about the alliance, but I'm very confident in the alliance because I think in 39 years, I learned Korean at the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California in 1981, and then came to Korea in 1982 with headphones on as a singing linguist, working side by side with our Korean friends at a very low practical action officer level, and have been involved in the alliance for 38 years. So I'm very confident in what I say about the strength of the alliance. You know the saying about the shirt, and if you get the top button right, the other buttons will fall into place. We've heard that. And I think I shared this at the last time I spoke. But it's worth remembering again. And for me, the top button in the alliance is the North Korean threat. If you look at North Korea and you see a leader who is unpredictable, Kim Jong-un, a nuclear and missile force that is growing, a conventional force that can still inflict a lot of damage, a pattern of behavior that is dangerous, issues such as how we work through OPCON transfer, what is the right agreement for a special measures agreement, what is the role of UNC, or any other alliance issue, is much easier to do when you get the top button right. If you look at North Korea as wanting peace, scared, timid, hoping for a better relationship with the Republic of Korea, hoping for a better relationship with the United States, a North Korea that's not really a threat, a North Korea that will behave well if we engage it, and peace breaking out on the peninsula in a way that's irreversible, then that button's going to be off. Your threat understanding is off. And naturally, you want OPCON right now. Naturally, you want to get UNC out of the business of the armistice. Naturally, you don't think you should pay any more for SMA. Why? Because your perception of the threat is different. You don't feel the urgency. 2017, I got here this time in 2016. So after being the special envoy for six-party talks, 2014, 2015, I came here in 2016. In 2017, missile launch after missile launch, nuclear tests thrown in, a period of increased tension, a lot of tension on the peninsula in 2016 and 2017. Those of us who have worked with North Korea a long time, like all of you, you remember tension. When I got here in 1982, I got here early April 1982. And I remember people saying in April 1982, Kim Jong-il promised Kim Il-sung he would, 무력 통일, 적화 통일, by his 70th birthday, which is April 15th. So for the first 2 weeks, I was here in great tension. You know, and I was here for the Aung San, the Rangoon bomb blast. I was here for the shoot down of Cal 007. I was here for, you know, shoot down of other Cals and Kim Hyun-hee's bombing of the Korean airline. All these events, we've been in tension before. So 2016 and 2017 was tense, but not unfamiliar to many of us. But to the world, it was unfamiliar. It seemed like we were going to war. And then 2018 came along. Pyeongchang Olympics, Kim Il-jung, this beautiful woman, comes down, fascinates Korean media, fascinates international media. It looks like a historic change, a new direction, an inflection point, a paradigmatic shift, all those fancy words, right, that you hear all the time. I was here in 1991, 1992, 1993. That was a historic time. Since 1972, the first meetings between North and South, 1991, 92, 93, looked like peace. We had the agreement on reconciliation, non-aggression, exchange, and cooperation. We had the North-South denuclearization declaration. We had an agreement to set up a military committee. There was talk about connecting railways, connecting roads, economic projects, all types of optimism about peace, about a new North Korea, about a change. I was here in 1999 to 2002. So I've witnessed the Kim Dae-jung, Kim Jong-il summit. I went with Madeleine Albright and about 100 other people in October 2000. It looked very much like 2000 was a new direction, a new peace, another June 15th declaration, another joint declaration, more optimism. October 2007, I was back in the States, but we had another Nomuhyun, Kim Jong-il summit. So 2018 was not unprecedented. It was not historic. And there was no indication 2018 was going to be any different than 1992, 1993, 2000, 2007. And I would assert that it is because if you look at North Korea and its nuclear program, there's basically 3 strategic lines of effort, 3 goals. Fundamentally, strategically, that since at least 1990, 1989, 1990, after the Korean War ended in 1988, with Noteyu's Nordpolitik, the successful invitation of the Eastern European countries, China, Soviet Union, they all come for the Olympics. 1989, 1990, 91, 92, the Cold War ends, South Korea normalizes relations with all the Soviet bloc countries, North Korea's world gets turned upside down. 3 trends. First, the atrophy of the conventional force begins at that time. They don't have their friends giving them food and fuel and state-of-the-art weapons. The long-range artillery is deployed, posing a threat to Seoul. The long-range artillery is like an 임시 핵 억제력. 생각해보니까 that's exactly what the long-range artillery is designed. It is a nuclear weapon. 핵은 아니지만은 핵의 효과하고 비슷한 그 capability잖아. But the nuclear program begins at that point. These 3 lines of effort. First of all, develop the capabilities. Develop the capabilities. It's been slow. 1989 to 1990, 1 to 2 weapons worth of plutonium. 1990s, quiet plutonium. HEU program starts, but weaponization takes place. And then 2003, plutonium breakout. 2006, first nuclear test. 2009, second nuclear test. 2013, third nuclear test, Byungjin. And then the missile madness of 2014, and then 2016. It's been a slow progress. But 30 years, that goal has been unwavering. Diplomacy takes place. But diplomacy is not diplomacy toward the goal of denuclearization. Diplomacy is the goal of buying time for the nuclear program. Early on, an insurance policy. The agreed framework made certain the Americans would not use military force. 1994 comes after 1993. Serious discussions about the use of military force on Yongbyon. Agreed framework buys time. Six-party talks buys time. Leap day agreement, which I conceived of and negotiated, buys time. Diplomacy has been buying time for the nuclear program. And getting the world used to accepting North Korea as a nuclear power. That has been the steady purpose of diplomacy for the sake of the last 30 years. That diplomacy can be different when it's inter-Korean, US DPRK, six-party talks, or North Korea's global diplomacy, but the goal again is to buy time, lock in the status. 2018, Panmunjom Declaration, Pyongyang Declaration, all designed to buy time for the nuclear program. It's interesting because in 2019, there was a set of launches of the newer, shorter range missiles. And Kim Jong-un stated how hard his scientists had worked for the last 3 years in securing this capability. And it was a very small line, but he said it twice on 2 different missile launches. And when you do the math, 3 years, 2017, 2018, 2019, consistent pursuit of nuclear missile capabilities, even in 2018, 2019, 2020. And so you see that consistency. North Korea is extremely understandable strategically. 많은 외교 정책 문제는 왜 해결하기 어렵냐면은 정보가 부족해서 어떻게 해야 되는지 올바른 계획이나 정책 세우지 못하기 때문에 어려워하고 있지만은 북한 경우에는 절대 안 그래요. 우리 북한은 몰랐어. 이 문제를 해결하지 못하는 것은 아니잖아. 우리 북한은 너무 잘 아니까 우리 해결 못하지. Right? It's not that we don't understand North Korea. It's pretty clear that we do. Tactically surprising. The blowing up of the Joint Liaison Office at Kaesong. A surprise. Tactically. Strategically, not surprising at all. Why do you conclude joint declarations in 2018 and then blow up the Joint Liaison Office in 2020? Because in 2018, you want to drive a split between the US and the Republic of Korea. You want to drive a split between the Cheonggpa and the Bosupa. You want to drive a split, right? So 2018, and then you blow up the Joint Liaison Office to remind South Korea there's 3 things you have to do. 3 things North Korea wants Republic of Korea to do. 1, stop cooperation with the United States. 그만 미국의 눈치를 보지 말고. Take the nuclear issue off of the inter-Korean table. 비핵화라는 것은 남북 간의 문제는 아니다. Third, which is related to that, no sanctions. Don't worry about sanctions. Inter-Korean relations should not be obstructed by sanctions. That's what the reminder of blowing up the Kaesong liaison office is. So again, this 30-year consistency, on the one hand, it's disappointing because it reminds us how hard denuclearization will be. It reminds us that North Korea is seeking better and greater capabilities. But it also reminds us we know the problem, we know the challenge. We have an honest discussion. The discussion between the US and the ROK to understand. I was in the 2000s, 2000년대 was really what I call the Solma decade. The Solma decade. Why? In the 2000s, nobody believed us. 북한은 설마 핵무기를 가지러 가는지, 그를 미려가 있는지, 능력이 있는지, 만약 갖는다 하더라도 사용하겠는지, 우리한테 위협이 되는지. There was denial. We were talking about new missile guidelines. What motivated new missile guidelines discussions? Two events. The Cheonan sinking and the Yeonpyeong-do shelling. 이것은 왜 핵무기를 갖고 있는, 핵무기를 보유하는 북한은 어떤 도발을 하겠는지에 대한 그런 결론이었어요. The sinking of the Cheonan and the shelling of Yeonpyeong were just a small lesson of the type of provocation. And the shock of Cheonan is because for 10 years we denied the reality of North Korea's pursuit of nuclear weapons. 북한이 설마 유라늄을 농축할 수 있을까? 농축하려고 했는지, 이거 기본 합의 써 있는데 조미 관계, 북미 관계 얼마나 좋았는지 왜? 설마? And of course, the U.S. intelligence community had said there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and we were wrong. So many people thought U.S. claims about uranium enrichment in North Korea were wrong as well. 부시 대통령, 클린턴 대통령 했던 것을 완전히 부인하니까 기본 합의서는 파기하고 이것은 꿈이어서 이 농축, 유라늄 농축에 대한 것은 꿈인 것이라 생각하는 사람은 많이 있었어요. I'm not blaming skeptics here in Korea because there were skeptics in the United States too. But all those problems are gone. We don't have differences of view on North Korea. Fundamental differences that are policy relevant. Kim Jong-un's intention to talk, we can still talk. It doesn't matter. In my last 4 years here in Korea, as a senior analyst for U.S. Forces Korea, Combined Forces Command, United Nations Command, I had the privilege of briefing many congressional delegations, many ministers of defense from various UNC sending states, Secretary Tillerson, Secretary Mattis, Secretary Pompeo when he was CIA director. And also in addition to that, had a good chance to work together with our ROK friends in the C2, in KDVA, in the ROK military. So I walk away and get ready to leave Korea with a good confidence that we see things similarly, at least in terms of North Korea's capabilities. That 30-year pursuit of the capability, 30-year pursuit of the acceptance, and 30 years of political and economic muddling through. No big political changes in North Korea, no big economic changes. 그냥 하루하루 요즘에 저는 김정일 때는 고난의 행군, 김정은 때는 고난의 투쟁. 어차피는 고난이다. 고난은 고난이지. That's North Korea's political. So the consistency of those over 30 years gives us great confidence that we understand North Korea. The Combined Forces Command. This has been a challenging tour for me, in large part because of the move to Pyeongtaek. I'm lucky. I still live in Yongsan. And if you know the housing on Yongsan, you know where South Coast Bunker is? My house is right across the street. It is a ghost town. Everybody else is gone, but my wife and me and my sons. The move has been difficult. It's true. It's, you know, if you go to the White House, the Combined Forces Command headquarters, you don't see Americans there, except for maybe a few days a week. You know, General Abrams is going back and forth, the J1, J2, 3, 4, 5, they're all doing their best. But there has been strains on the relationship. But that said, and we have had training exercises scaled down, delayed, because of COVID. You know, we've had areas where Combined Forces Command readiness is challenged. As I look here at this audience, I think of all of our U.S. friends as well who are dedicated to the Alliance. Combined Forces Command is where many of us met. Combined Forces Command is where we learned about each other. Combined Forces Command is really where on a day-to-day basis, sure the MCM is important and the SCM and the KID, those are all important, you know, meetings between our SecDevs, our chairman, our, you know, assistant secretary, director general level, but day-to-day that CFC is the glue that holds together. And it's held together even with a move. And I think it'll get even stronger going forward. OpCon transfer will be done right. It will be conditions based. It will be when we've got the mechanisms in place so this future command, 4-star American general is replaced with a 4-star Korean general. Both of them still reporting to two chairmen, MINDEF, SecDef, Hot Rock, POTUS, but that transition will be smooth. Deterrence will be maintained, readiness will be maintained. And so I think, although it's been a challenge, and change is always hard. I walk around Yongsan now, and I have memories of my children going to Seoul American elementary schools, or even the golf course. I never played golf, but you know, I go back, many of you remember the golf course. I mean, but things change, and we will be stronger as a result. So I think another pillar of the relationship, therefore, to transition, so the one pillar of the relationship is North Korea as a threat, unchanged. Combined Forces Command, remaining solid. The other is the challenges themselves, the challenges. Let's not look at SMA, let's not look at OpCon, let's not look at UNC or the other issues as divisive, weakening issues, but rather opportunities to become stronger, to become firm. I remember in 2012-ish, was that the election? Was that the election year? An Cho-soo, Park Geun-hye, and Moon Jae-in? 2012, 2013. I came out with my boss, Danny Russell, and we met with each of the three candidates' camps. And our recurring message at that time was, the alliance transcends politics. The alliance transcends ideology. It was difficult in those Rumsfeld era years. I remember I love to tell the story when Cho Yong-gil, the defense minister, visited, and I was at CIA at the time, and the Department of Defense called up and said, we need an interpreter. I go, I'll do it, let me try one time. I'm not a trained interpreter, my Korean is very basic, but I did do Onuri Kyoe for 3 years, Tongchi Tongyok, so I've had some experience. And that was a difficult meeting. If you remember, 2005, 2006, those were difficult meetings when we were talking about OpCon transfer for the first time. It was almost confrontational at times. But the challenges we have now aren't confrontational. They're difficult, but they're not confrontational because we all want the same result. Solid national security, advancement of respective national interests, an honest discussion. If you take the theatrics of SMA aside, having a good discussion on burden sharing allows us to share our thoughts, share our concerns, understand our needs, and again, confident that we will work this out and we'll be stronger as a result. OpCon transfer has been a great opportunity to look at capabilities of the force. I'll tell you, 2017 was an interesting year because 2017, with all the tension on the peninsula, really had a lot of us looking at, basics. I work in that that skiff building right next to the White House. And I asked people, so if I start hearing artillery shells on Knight Field, where do I get to the bus to drive to CP Tango? Oh, we don't practice that. And we don't have a plan? You know, there were areas where our planning over the years had gotten too comfortable in armistice. I think as we look at the OPCON transfer, as we look at the capabilities, it's capabilities-based OPCON transfer, as we look at the capabilities which were selected because they had meaning, because they had need, because we saw them as critical to building the force, almost independent of OPCON, right? Even without the OPCON transfer, you'd still want to be developing missile defense. You'd still want to be developing kill chain. You'd still want to be developing ISR capabilities. You still want to be developing command and control communications. Again, so even the OPCON transfer process is helping us. It's helping us work through some of these conditions. And through all of this, North Korea is deterred. North Korea is deterred. They know we're here for each other, that the U.S. commitment to the security of the Republic of Korea is unchanged. And finally, when you look at the U.S.-ROK relationship, we talk about shared values, democracies, capitalist democracies, who respect human rights. This is what brought us together. I think historians will speak honestly and say, you know, I remember General Brooks would like to say, the U.S. commitment to the Republic of Korea through the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s in particular, helped build the democracy that we see today. I don't know if students in Gwangju would have agreed with that if you could turn back the clock and ask, you know, what the 1970s was like. I don't know if you know, people who were victims of Yushin would think the same way, but I can tell you this. Out of those years of hardship, where it was so critical to suppress the communist threat to the Republic of Korea, through those years of building and maturing, we do have shared values. It was always about a road to democracy, even if democracy wasn't perfect in the 1950s and 1960s, 1960s. We got there. And again, it was because of those shared values and the U.S. commitment to helping as a partner to bring Korea to where it is today. I don't want to talk much about China, but I think China will be the litmus test, a test, because we are at a serious point in the history of geopolitics that will define much of the rest of the 21st century. And that is this standoff, this competition between a country like China that disobeys international rules, laws, norms, and standards, uses economic coercion as victims of the THAAD pressure you all know of, that militarily threatens, that feels that the international order, peace and democracy, international means of resolving conflict, that the international order is unfair to China, and they are out to change that international order. We were talking about the State Department, I can't remember if it was the State Department spokesperson or the Assistant Secretary of State, Dave Stilwell, who said, you know, the Republic of Korea has already chosen democracy, has already chosen. It's not a matter of choosing the United States or choosing China. It's the system, it's the values you choose. And this has brought us together all these years, and I think it will bring us together going forward. I am fully sympathetic to the challenges China faces the Republic of Korea. And the adage that Republic of Korea is economically dependent on China and on security is dependent on the United States. It needs to balance that. That you need to not choose sides. I think our inability to fully integrate missile defense and to achieve solid, sustainable trilateral security cooperation with Japan are troubling. I understand the reasons behind it, but I think the future of the alliance, the future of the U.S.-ROK relationship, particularly until Xi Jinping and China change in the direction they're going, and as we look for strategic partners, I am sure Korea will be a strategic partner, but I understand how hard it will be. And this will be something that, we will have to have an honest conversation of going forward. I'm just thinking about the time, General Lee, when we did a kind of a 통일후 한미 동맹 장례, and you gave a very eloquent presentation with perfect Republic of Korea talking points. And Bill Brown, at the very end, he raises his hand, he said, if the threat that made the alliance, the threat of North Korea goes away, you can't tell me we can just assume a happy, eternal alliance in a unified Korea. There's going to be a discussion. There's going to be a debate. What is the cost of a security relationship with the United States with such an aggressive neighbor to your west? And I know Bill personally, it was a good point he pointed out. And it is it's our homework. China is our homework, I think, going forward. We have only begun to see the trouble that China can cause in the region. And, I hope that I'm confident the U.S. and the Republic of Korea can evolve to meet those challenges. And that's the hope going forward. And again, the work that your organization does is so crucial. If you've got all these experiences, the young soldier coming to work in Korea in the Combined Forces Command, see the beauty of the alliance, move up through company grade, field grade, general officer level, or on the enlisted side, or the number of people in the civilian workforce, whether at DIA, Department of Defense, CIA, State Department. We are all committed to the alliance because we've all worked it, and you continue that on, and you ensure that glue in your years of experience continues to contribute to the alliance, and for that, I'm very thankful. I don't know any other place where there's such an avid, passionate commitment to keeping a relationship among professionals like us who have worked together to advance it. So with that, thanks to you and all that you do, and thanks for the invitation to come and speak. Time permitting, I'm willing to entertain any questions you may have.
네, 질문해 주시면은 우리 저 김장욱 교수님께서 통역해 주시겠습니다.
한국말 갑자기
미스터 사일로께서 강연하셨는데
예.
김 교수가 한 1부로 요약해가지고 핵심만 밑줄 딱 해요.
이거는
한번 얘기 먼저 한번 해지.
아니
아니야?
예 너무
다 알아들을 수 있죠.
네.